for religious schools. If it isn't federal, and where you said there's no government spending on religion here, it's people's private money that they send to various student tuition organizations. If it isn't federal funding when people use their private money to fund religion tuition at a parochial school and receive a tax deduction or credit for doing so, how is it federal funding when people use their private money to pay for their medical care or insurance coverage?
As a general proposition, tax reduction is a form of government subsidy.
And by tax reduction, you mean like a tax credit or something?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
And I would just direct you to, and I'll get you the citation if you need it, but Obamacare itself makes this distinction. It calls, or makes this equation, I should say, it calls tax credits for buying insurance on the state exchanges. It calls those a creature of federal funding.
Excuse me.
You have an argument with this.
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
It seems inconsistent. Either it is or it isn't. How can you say that for religious schools it is not, and for health insurance it is? Well, how do you make that distinction?
Well, I appreciated your opening statement where you said it's our money, and that is what the Republicans often say, and I think that's accurate.
In which case, you shouldn't be arguing what you're arguing with respect to health care.
Again,
if it's our money,
yeah.
If it's our money, then it's not a government subsidy, as you said in the Arizona case, or your organization said in the Arizona case. If it is not our money and it is a government subsidy, then it's the contrary. It can't be, both things can't be true.
And I would say your argument is with President Obama and his health.
That may be, but I'm asking you how you justify saying it's a government subsidy here but not there. Which is it? And why is it different? As
a general proposition, tax reduction is a form of government subsidy, as a general proposition.
But not with respect to religious schools? What? Okay, Mr. Dorflinger, let me ask you. As a general proposition, government tax exemptions, tax subsidies are a tax subsidy, are what do you call it, government spending? You said it was a tax, what did you say as a general proposition? It is a form of government subsidy. If tax exemptions are a form of government subsidy, how do we justify tax exemptions for the Catholic Church, the Jewish synagogue, the Protestant church, or anybody else, or any other government?
I think the first reason why churches are not taxable is simply that they don't make a profit. We're nonprofit organizations. There's
well, wait a minute. We don't. They are exempt from. What about the individual who gives money to the church? That's not taxable. That has nothing. That's not taxable.
Right.
And isn't that under your definition? Isn't that a government subsidy to the church?
I think the federal government has made a policy decision a very long time ago that charities and churches.
Excuse me. It's not a question of a policy decision because if it is a public subsidy to the church, it's unconstitutional because of the Establishment Clause. So either if a tax credit to the individual contributing to the church is not a government subsidy, then these things aren't government subsidies. But if it is a government subsidy, then you've got an establishment problem under the First Amendment, have you not?
It is not unconstitutional to give public subsidies to a charitable or church organization as long as you are serving a legitimate secular purpose.
Excuse me, but wait. Excuse me, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. Our policy, if you give a contribution, when I give a contribution to my synagogue, it's not for general purposes, it's for religious purposes.
Right.
And that is, and I take a tax deduction for that. Now, under your definition, that's a government subsidy of the synagogue or the church, and it should be, therefore, a violation of the First Amendment.
That's not my definition, sir. I disagree with your basic premise, which is that all of these things are the same and it's all one thing.
You're just trying to have your cake and eat it too, because either a tax exemption is a government subsidy or it's not. If it's not a government subsidy, then the whole point of this bill. Excuse me, I'm talking. Then the whole point of this bill is wrong. If it is a government subsidy, then this bill may be right, but then we have to question, not just question, but then tax subsidies, government subsidies to all religious institutions are probably unconstitutional as violations of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Professor Rosenbaum, do you agree with Ms. Roos's position that H.R. 3 does not affect employer-provided plans?
I do not. For the reasons stated in my written testimony, I find Section 3032 ambiguous. It specifically refers to any deduction covering not only medical care but health benefit plans, and I think that the ambiguity is critical on this point.
Thank you. My time is expired. I'm told my time is expired.